Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guide. This is another episode of the C programming series, and in this video we are going to learn about conditional statements inside of C. So in order to do that, let us consider a small example. In here, let us consider a really simple program. For example, I am going to create an integer here called marks, which I am going to initialize to 0 by default, and we are going to take these marks from the user using the scanf function as we learned in the previous video. And we are going to take the marks, and of course do not forget the and sign here. And let us first say to the user something like enter your marks, and like that. We are not going to output a new line after this. So that's awesome. And depending on some condition, some kind of limit, we might want to display one of two messages, which is first of all, you pass the test, and let's say something like wow, you passed the test. And we might also want to say something like you failed the test, and we want to either display one of these message, and which message actually display depends on how many marks the user has obtained. So how do we actually implement a way in which we can check a condition and then output one of two different messages? In order to add a condition in C, what we can do is for the condition we can use an if statement. An if statement is basically written like this: first you say the word if, actually, then you put a pair of parentheses after this, and in this pair of parentheses you are supposed to put some kind of condition. This condition tells that if this condition is true, then execute whatever we tell it to. So we need to put a condition here, and we can say something like marks is greater than, and you can put any condition here, less than as well, using the appropriate signs. And I'm going to actually say greater than or equal to. And by the way, the reason it's actually showing the greater than or equal to symbol and not just greater, when you are writing, you just write greater and then equals afterwards. But I've got like a special Visual Studio Code extension which is allowing this kind of ligatures, because I've got a special font which supports this kind of things. But normally if you don't use a special font, it will just display greater than and then equal to afterwards. This is just a display thing related to Visual Studio Code. This actually does not have any effect on the program. So I just wanted to make that clear, because this is not like some kind of Unicode symbol or anything. It's just a greater than sign and an equal sign after that. So here we can put something like 60 here, and you can of course put whatever you like here, and then you can put a pair of curly braces here. And if I do that, whatever I put inside these curly braces is only going to be executed if this statement, if this condition is true, whatever is inside this. So I can put this statement inside of those curly braces. Now as far as this statement goes, we only want to print it if the marks are less than 60, which means that this condition is not true. We can of course write another if conditions, but that would be meaningless because there is a much easier way to do that. We can use an else statement. An else can only come after an if, and we are going to put like a similar a pair of curly braces after that. And this is basically saying that if this is true, then do this, and if this is not true, then do this. So it should be pretty self-explanatory. It's not really something difficult. And actually since we have only one statement in here, we can remove these braces. These braces are only required in if statements. This does not apply to functions. These braces are for if statements and other kinds of statements. You can actually remove the braces if there is only like one thing here. So there is only one statement, we can remove the braces and it works perfectly fine. And you can see that I am indenting the code here, and that is not necessary, but it does make your code a bit more readable. So we can add that. It's does not have any effects on the actual program. This is purely for readability. So with this, that should actually be pretty much it that we want for our program. But there is one more thing to this if statements, and that is that we can actually go ahead and add another else here, and we can add an if right after. And this is like else if. It means so we can actually put like multiple if conditions. We can change them like this. And for example, here we can say if marks are equal, and when you are putting equal, you need to put two equal signs. So putting one equal won't work because one equal is used for this assignment, and you need to put two equal signs when you are checking if marks is equal to anything. And we are going to check if marks are equal to 60, and here we are going to just make it greater than and not greater than or equal. And remember, below here I've got two equal signs. And here I can put another statement here, and I don't need the curly braces because I'm not having multiple statements. It's just one. I can say something like you barely passed. And this is basically pretty easy to understand as well. We are checking if this is true. If this is not true, then we are checking if this is true, and we can actually put as many of these as we like we can keep adding else ifs as many as we want, and in the end we can add an else statement, which basically means if none of this worked, then try this. So yeah, this was pretty awesome, and you can see that we have essentially got a good conditional program. So now we can go ahead and try to see if our program actually runs, and we can see if it works correct. So in order to compile that, we can of course go gcc hello.c like that, and it should compile it pretty easily because our program is completely error free. It should not give any errors, and you can see it does. And we can run a.exe, and it asks us to enter our marks. If I say 70 for example, it says you passed the test, wow. And if I go ahead and say 60, it says you barely passed, few. And if I go ahead and say something like 30, then you can see it says you failed the test. So our program is working perfectly. So yeah guys, this was pretty much it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, in which we are going to learn about we are actually going to try to make a calculator in the next video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I will see you in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe as well, and bye.